In my own case, the first time I heard about the committee was when my dean sent me a WhatsApp message and said that the majority leader, through the auspices of the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, is setting up this committee that will have institutional representation. And then he said the University of Ghana School of Law is one of the institutions that would be part of this committee. And then he said, Clara, I'm not asking you whether you want to go or not. I'm saying you are going. And didn't give me an opportunity to respond to whether or not, but yes. So yes, the first time I got to know about it was when Professor Ramona Tuguba sent me that WhatsApp message and said, from the School of God, you will represent the University of Ghana School of Law on this committee.
Prof is not known to be autocratic. So what is going on? All right.
So yes. So here I am on. That's the first time I got on the committee. Then of course the communication started, and then at the end of the day we have 12 institutions. So we have the University of Ghana School of Law, we have the NCCE, we have ACET, we have the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, we have the National Media Commission, we have the Judiciary, we have the Audit Service, we have the Ghana Bar Association, and we have the Ministry of Justice and Attorney General's Department. We have SHRAJ, we have the NDPC, the National Development Planning Commission, and then we have the Parliamentary Service. So what happened was that all of these institutions freely decided who they wanted to represent them on the committee, and they sent the person on the committee.
Right.
So the majority leader inaugurated the committee, and then the committee had its first meeting, and then the committee elected me as its chair for this job. So the committee is non-partisan. Because as I noted, it's institutional representation. Yes. Okay. It is also independent. Since we've started work, nobody has given us instructions.
The institutions again are the University of Ghana School of Law, the NCCE, the Africa Center for ASEP, the MOPA, that's the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, NMC, Judiciary, Audit Service, the GBA, this is Ministry of Justice and Attorney General, the SHRAJ, the NDPC, very important, and Parliamentary Service. Thank you. Please go on.
Yes. So yes, and consultative. So people made submissions to the committee on what they want to look at since at least after the CRC report. So we've considered these submissions, and the way the committee operates is by consensus. So we consider the submissions, look at the recommendation of the CRC report, look at what has been overtaken by events, or is there a more efficient way of doing things. So in short, we all agree that it's been 40 years since we've been operating the 1992 Constitution. So what we did was to do a clause by clause consideration of the committees, the Constitution. And then the interesting thing you realize is that there are some of the things that we complain about, but when you actually go to the text of the Constitution, you realize that the solution we are prescribing is actually what is in there already. And yet it is just the way we have operationalized it that is the problem. But there were certainly some of them that required for us that requires a review of the text of the material.
So you say that you received inputs.
Yes.
Which you have reviewed and you are incorporating into what you are doing. What we know, for example, about the CRC, the Constitution Review Commission that was set up in 2010, was that they did, a nationwide process and received submissions from all sorts of places. They went to chief justices, former chief justices. They went to presidents, former presidents. They also held, consultations and so on. Even went beyond the country to, consult with Ghanaians abroad, and eventually brought the 100,000-page document, and they gave us 41 entrenched provisions that needed to be amended, and then 57 non-entrenched provisions. When you say you received inputs that you're working with. How did you go about that?
So the report, our first document is a report. What did the CRC report recommend?
Okay.
Now, after, it's been, I think that the report was in 2011.
That's correct.
So that's been more than 10 years since the report was made. So obviously some of the things would have been taken by events. So some people have made proposals post the CRC report. So what we do is we look at the proposals they've submitted, we look at what is in the CRC, what the CRC recommended, and then we decide whether or not the text is fine as it is, or the recommendation from the CRC report should be maintained, okay, or whether there's a new suggestion that comes forward. So for example, if you look at the solution that the CRC report recommended for Article 71, for example, was to set up an emoluments commission. And then, of course, then it would do the determination. So we came up with a proposal, including submissions we've received, that rather than create another body, just leave the committee, just that this time, rather than do it every year, the committee comes up with a formula, and that is it. So once you have a formula, you now input the ingredients into the formula. It will tell you how much, just like the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has a formula for public sector workers and all of that. So what the committee should be doing should be a one-term formula. Maybe periodically like 10 years, you want to look at the formula again, fine. But we should be dealing with a formula rather than setting up committees that we have to pay and have to think of salaries and all of that. Okay. So you see that this is something that would have been overtaken by events, because even after this, we also had the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission. It's worked up to some time. Let's strengthen our institutions. So let's see what institutions we can bring. TUC, Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, Audit Service. Again, institutions come together, determine a formula, and we use it. We have the petroleum formula, for example, so we don't have to each time go back and then set up a committee to decide petroleum pricing. We use a formula. So let's do a similar thing for the formula. So in short, what this committee does is to look at the proposals and submission post the CRC. And
this sounds a more progressive approach. Instead of setting up an emoluments commission that will be paying,
exactly, we'll pay salaries.
The appointment to who should become there will become another fight.
And Secretariat.
We should just have one formula set up, and that's it. Either we amend it from time to time.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's it. And
so that a president doesn't come and then before they are exiting office, they set up an emoluments committee.
Exactly.
They determine their, benefits.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Something. So something like. So this is a very rich document, and that we are working with. And like we said, we are looking at post the CRC. The other issue that we have to consider is that, look, when the 1992 Constitution was being passed, it came as a whole document. So it was presented at a referendum. You did not have the opportunity to say, I like Articles 1 to 20, I don't like Article 15, I don't like Article 16. You either took the whole document or you leave it. That's how we came by the 1992 Constitution. And like we all agree, constitutions are living documents. Along the line, as a people, we might outgrow certain aspects. So the Constitution itself provided room for amendment. The other thing we have to realize is that it is not possible under the Constitution that we have. We have amendment procedures. We cannot take an entire document like this again and go back for a referendum and say, take it or leave it, because I might like some of the recommendations, I might not like the other recommendations. The nature of the Constitution, what the Constitution itself has provided is that I should determine that before any I is dotted on the Constitution, or before any word is taken out of the Constitution, it should be clear. So if it is entrenched, the provisions are clear that it has to go to a referendum. If it is not entrenched, of course, Parliament can deal with that. So for the entrenched clauses, if we are going to go for a referendum and we really want to have practice democratic values, the people should be able to understand every amendment we are asking them of. This is not going to be possible if you lump 56 amendments together, or even 15 or 10 amendments together and tell the people that vote, because the people have to vote on each one of them.
That's right.
So what this committee will do is, after we've now, of course, done the consultations, because as the name suggests, it's consultative, and agreed finally on the recommendations that we want, we also provide a roadmap. that one, we categorize them. These are the entrenched, these are the ones that fall within entrenched provisions. These are the non-entrenched provisions. So that the non-entrenched provisions, Parliament can see, and we can even recommend. Parliament, we think these are the ones that if you start with, they can make profound changes. With the ones for referendum, similar. We can't take all the amendments to referendum at the same time. We should have a roadmap, and the roadmap should include which ones we can start with. One first will be how many should we go with at a time?
Just hold on, these are the members. So you see Clara first, Mr. Anthony Forson Jr. member, Yabwedua Yebuafo member, Dr. Kojo Esiem, Mensa Abrampa member, Mr. Dixon Chinibua Kodia. Then you have Mrs. Mercy Labi, a member, Mr. John Nwoza, who joins us now, Mr. Victor Brobe, Professor John Asafwaje, Justice Yoni Kolendi, that will be representing the judiciary, Mr. Alfred Chiayeboa, representing Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and Nana Tewia Ochre will be representing Parliament. Or parliamentary service. Right. Okay. So those are the members. We're just showing you. You can follow us now. Please go on.
Yes. So the guiding principles, for example, of this committee is, first of all, if you make a submission, does it belong in a constitution? I always say that constitutions are not manuals. Mm-hmm. So we have to have an understanding of what a constitution is and whether what we want to see belongs in a constitution or it belongs in an act, a regulation, or a political party constitution. Then if it belongs in the constitution, does the current provision achieve that effect? If the current provision doesn't achieve that effect, is it consistent with the clear values of the Constitution? And then, of course, we look at efficiency and all of that. So what this committee is doing is putting together everything post the CRC. And like I said, starting with the recommendations of the CRC, looking at where we are after the CRC, with the sole objective being that we want to come out at the end of the day with recommendations for a report that will show us where we are 12 years since the CRC report, where we want to be in our democratic journey, and recommend a constitutional framework that puts us in a position to pursue the Ghanaian aspiration for democracy. That is what constitutions can do. And as I've said in public fora all the time, constitutions don't have legs. They don't have arms. They can give you a tool to work with, guaranteeing respect for everybody, and then the rest of it has to be done with various institutions, right, including all of us.
Forson, we are just sharing with our audience your mandate clearly stated in there. But you say that you are not supposed to redo or undo what the Constitution Review Commission did. So you are still getting new input into that. You'll be undoing some of it, just like we have just been shown. The Emoluments Commission that was proposed, you are undoing it.
Yes, it's, it's semantics.
Right.
Some will say it's a review of it because it's maintained, but it is reviewed. But even before I go to your comments, Samson, I have a preliminary point that I would want to forcefully state.
Please go ahead.
That is the topic for today. Propping up a failing democracy. I have serious objections to it. I do not think our democracy is failing. We as a people are failing. There are deep cracks within the system, deep divisions as to political affiliation, etc., leading to cultures of silence. But the democracy itself is not failing. Look, as we sit now, people are looking up with relish to the 2024 elections. Not so. Mm-hmm. The Electoral Commission of Ghana has conducted successful elections from 1992 with all its modifications up till now. Indeed, there's a section of people in Ghana who believe that the current administration has done so well that it should break the 8. There's another section which believes that the government has not done enough and must be changed. So I think that the fundamentals are there, that we all wish to continue in this political light. And I agree with His Excellency the President in the first tape that came up, that we've practiced all forms of systems, and we believe that democracy, with all its flaws, is the best way to go. So I do not think that the democracy is failing. No. So it's a point I want to make as to your choice of topic today.
We're speaking to the data and the surveys, Afrobarometer and the rest of them.
Correct.
Trust in public institutions is at the worst ever. Christopher Nyanivi and Richard Fosu of Monash University, Melbourne, have recorded in a recent academic publication that they did, and we shared this, myself and Mami, the last time we did a discussion on that, that the pride and euphoria that greeted independence from colonial rule in the late 1950s through the 1960s was short-lived, and many African countries plunged into decades of political instability, socioeconomic stagnation and crisis, and even civil wars. The causes included lack of democratic participation and peaceful transfer of power. Now, if we recall the rebel movements and the bloody coups of the 80 successful ones, there have been 80 successful coups, 108 failed coup attempts, and 139 plots in sub-Saharan Africa alone between 1956 and 2001. Last year, there was a wave of coups, and it is predicted that this will continue. The general cry that citizens are not happy because the dividends of democracy have not been delivered makes constitution review an imperative. This is the fact with the people, that the democracies are failing.
I still disagree.
Okay.
It is not the democracy which is failing. It is the people themselves who are failing. And the people means from the child in the class 5 elections up to the top. India has the biggest democracy, hasn't it? Has there been a coup there? Never.
By Chairman's verdict, as we just heard,
yes,
the democracy is failing.
Well, that is Chairman's verdict.
We have a monarch, not a president.
That is Chairman's verdict, and he's entirely entitled to it. Very brilliant man.
All right.
But I disagree. And that is the fundamental law which says that he has the right to freedom of conscience, thought, and belief. That's what he believes.
Right.
I disagree.
Okay.
I think that our democracy is on track. The institutions are failing. The people are failing the institutions. The people are failing to hold the leaders accountable. But as the president said, it is the best form with all its flaws, and I agree. So let's move from that premise that, look, it will get better. I would ask you that if you listen to Daddy Lumba's latest song, he said that no matter what happens, even before your dying day, you wear the crown. So let us have the hope and work towards that hope. If you look at the preamble of the Constitution, it is all there.
Right.
So let us work, with positivity rather than the negativity.
Right. So now we have been introduced to the committee, the composition of the committee, and we are looking at the ways you are working, and we are told about how you are working in consensus.
Yes.
And how you vote on contested areas
Yes.
if there are.
Yes.
So what have you been able to do over this period?
Yes, as Clara indicated, and before I even proceed, I have been blessed by my country because I happen to be the youngest member of the Consultative Assembly,
Yes.
which put this constitution together. So I have the institutional
Justice
memory.
Brobe
was
told
there.
us about that
Yes.
at Legon
Yes.
last week.
Okay, yes.
He mentioned that you were the youngest.
I was the youngest, actually.
In that committee.
So
the committee that brought up the 1992 constitution.
Yes.
He was there.
I was the youngest. So with Osafo Mafon and Oto Sribo and all those people. So I have all the institutional memory. Right. So I remember plenty of the things that went into the thinking. So when we take it clause by clause, and I'll be honest, I missed only one sitting of that Consultative Assembly, because when I was unmarried, I was not a lawyer. So I attended every meeting except one when I went to the hospital. Okay. So I remember every clause and sometimes even the people who made presentations. So when we take it clause by clause, because I have that link between what actually went in and the new thinking with the committee, it actually facilitates.
Let me ask you about this comparatively.
Yes.
From what we heard from Justice Brobe and Justice Amono, Money,
yes,
who were all part of that committee.
Yes.
In fact, they shared their lived experience with the situation with us, and it was so refreshing. That consultative committee was huge.
Yes.
Yes.
Yours is rather small.
Yes.
There were the market women.
Yes.
And all of those other people, fishmongers and all the rest. You guys are institutions represented by the institution's bests.
Yes, let me explain. That huge committee, Consultative Assembly, produced the Constitution. Then we move from there to the CRC, which has a 1,000-page document. So we are distilling the findings of the CRC with the CRCC. So there's a wealth of knowledge available with all what Chairman Sabonsu has said, what other findings have been. So we are distilling and trying to get the perfect document to help us as to fund attorney.
So you don't necessarily need that kind of organization?
We don't. The Constitution is a living document. So having lived it up to this point, we see where we have fallen short and try to perfect it.
Right.
Yes.
And we'll do consultations as well. So once we finalize, before we finalize and come out with our final report, we would have presented the findings and the recommendations to people to provide their inputs.
Right.
Yes.
Before we bring others to join us to discuss what you are doing, you have already taken us to some of the recommended proposals that you are looking at. And I'm hoping that through this platform, we can get you feedback.
Yes.
Clara just spoke about the emoluments, commission that was proposed, and you appear to bring a superior, approach to it. Then there is NDPC Article 71 office holders, whether there should be a cap on the ministers, president paying tax or not paying tax, there should be a cap on constituencies. It's an issue that is invoked now.
In fact, interestingly,
what are you guys saying?
We are even talking about removal of all deputy ministers.
Really?
Yes.
Yes.
What's the basis for that suggestion?
We are cutting down the size of government.
So we cap the ministers. Our recommendation is to cap ministers at 25.
25.
Not more than 25. Ghana doesn't need more than 25 ministers to run.
Interesting.
Revolutionary.
25 ministers.
Yes.
No
deputy ministers.
No deputies.
No.
And it's capped.
Yes.
It's not in a situation like where Akufo-Addo, surprised all of us. 126 ministers.
25.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And constituencies too should be capped. Now we have already have
275 with the possibility of 276 with SAL.
Exactly.
Yes. And there has been a debate that we have known for a long while now that people were actually lacing their boots for a total of 25 new constituencies to be created.
The EC has come out to say that
yes, I get it.
Only one.
Yes, I get it. Yeah. You are saying it should be capped.
It should be capped. We don't need more than 277 constituencies.
So for Parliament, you are not asking for a reduced number. You want it to stay at where it is.
It's almost impossible. It will be very difficult to reduce it. If we